Hi, it's a pleasure to be here this afternoon, and I'm delighted to be here with Wendy. She's one of our patients, but very proud of her to be on stage today and share her story. I know it takes a lot. I'm going to play a short video really to emphasize exactly what we do and why we do it, and then talk a little bit about why we do what we do and a bit about my family history. So without further ado, I'm going to play the video.
Shining, gleaming, steaming, flaxen, waxen. Give me down to their hair, shoulder length or longer. Here, baby, there, mama. Everywhere, daddy, daddy, hey. Blow it, show it, now it's got me.
I think you'll all agree that that video is pretty powerful. It's not just about losing a person's hair. It has far more impact than that, and a really psychological impact. I'm going to tell you about why we do what we do. So when I was 10 years old, my mum was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. She was in her 30s, 4 young children, and when my mum was told that she needed chemotherapy, it's something she really didn't want to deal with. Our local hospital back then were actually offering something called cold caps or scalp cooling, and my mum gave it a go. But for my mum, it didn't work, and that was the first time she was really affected by the disease, that really visible sign that she was unwell. So seeing that distress, my father started to look up, well, why didn't it work, and what can we do to help patients in the future? Fast forward 15, 20 years, and now we have over 3,500 devices used in many parts of the world and treated over 100,000 patients. More importantly, though, we're here to learn from Wendy about her experience. So Wendy, can you start to tell me a little bit about your own journey, but also what scalp cooling meant to you?
So I want to start by saying I actually am the lead planner for this conference, and last year I was healthy, and I came back and went for a routine mammogram and found out that I had stage 2 HER2 positive breast cancer. And it was very difficult because I had an important job that I needed to continue to do, and more importantly, I had 2 small girls, 10 and 11. And I'm a single parent, and so it was devastating, the thought of telling them about my diagnosis and what that would mean in the future.
Yeah, how do you feel it affected you in a work environment as well?
I think that when you look sick, people treat you differently. I feel like I didn't want people to feel sorry for me. I was very optimistic about my outcome, and I wanted other people to be as positive as I was. As I have gone through treatment, I had 4 rounds of pretty brutal chemotherapy, and I was able to save my hair using the Paxman. And people, all the time, my colleagues were so impressed and thought that I was so strong and treated me normally, and it meant everything.
So here in the United States, unfortunately, it's currently a self-pay treatment. So we're relatively new to the market, and we're working with reimbursement consultants to try and change that. How did you find out about scalp cooling, and sort of how did you navigate through the process? Was it something simple or difficult? Was it physician-led?
It was definitely physician-led. I was very fortunate that the hospital that I was being treated at, my oncologist, immediately told me that it was an option. She did indicate that I would have to be responsible for payment. I feel lucky that I had the means to do that, because there's a lot of people that don't, and I've actually been close friends with many that can't afford it. But if she hadn't brought it up, I wouldn't even have known that it was an option. And it really did. It made such a huge difference for me going through and psychologically being able to look in the mirror and know that person.
Yeah, certainly. That's really, really great to hear that and you share your story. In terms of then financial assistance, did anyone talk to you about financial assistance, or was that not a discussion that was needed?
I think it depends on the treatment facility you're at, how much information they're able to provide to you about. There are a number of groups that will provide scholarships for this system or similar treatments, but you're really reliant on the information provided to you by your oncologist and the hospital. So if you don't have a network that's familiar with it, I mean, it's still such a new concept here, I think, in the U.S.
Yeah, it certainly is, and we're really trying to change that. Do you feel that you had to be really your own advocate through this process?
Yeah, that's actually something that I think it doesn't really matter what kind of condition that you're diagnosed with. I mean, we live in an age right now of patient empowerment, and I often felt like if I didn't read up on the information as I was going through it, a lot of my nurses were on a rotation. I didn't have consistently the same one every time, and I was often like, nope, we have to start it now, and then we have to do, I really knew exactly what the protocol should be, so I was able to advise and advocate for myself, and I think that really helped lead to a successful outcome.
We have a number of sort of support groups through Facebook and other platforms. Do you think there's anything more that we can do as a business to support patients through this journey? That being said, that some of perhaps the healthcare professionals are not as involved as maybe we want them to be?
I mean, I think that from a patient perspective, you want to be able to join like an online or an in-person support group and be able to be really candid about, your experience and what you like and what you don't like. But I do think that outside of those communities, hosting events and inviting patients to come in and give you feedback is an important part of always advancing the technology and improving. No,
it's good feedback, and I think we'll definitely take that on board and look to set up some more US-centric opportunities there. So hopefully you'll join me and help with that. So for any potential patients out there, what sort of advice would you give to those patients who are going through this and perhaps looking at scalp cooling as an option for them?
I think the first thing, look at your respective options, investigate the technology, make a decision on really whether or not you want to pursue it. If you do, then I recommend joining a support community online. You find out a lot of tips on what can help you get through the process. And then I think, especially for me, I've found that talking about my experience, all of the things that cancer has taken from me, being able to talk about it and potentially positively impact others that are going through a similar experience has been a way of getting my power back. So whenever you have an opportunity to pay it forward and talk to others about what you're going through, I think that's a really good experience.
Yeah, we really support peer-to-peer learning. So if there's any tips that you could provide us as a company new to the US market, really wanting to get the noise out there and ensure that patients can really engage and have a choice, what would you recommend that we focus on as an organization from a patient perspective?
I think the number one thing is there's a stigma I've discovered myself. I was really nervous about talking about this because I didn't want people to think that it was a superficial thing, that, she's concerned about the way she looks. It never was about that. It was the fact that I have 2 small children, and the first question that my, at the time, 9-year-old asked me is, will you die? And so I feel like being able to look the same has been incredibly comforting for them. They've never doubted for a minute that I would get better. For my mom, who wasn't able to be with me during every stage of my treatment, she would Facebook stalk me and see pictures that I was posting where I looked happy and healthy, and not having the burden of worrying about making other people feel better about me allowed me to just focus on me and getting better. And so that's really helpful. So it's much more than an appearance. It removes a burden that I just can't really articulate well.
Well, I think you did a pretty special job, and we can't thank you enough for sharing your story. And myself and my family and my colleagues are delighted that you could get access to the treatment, and hopefully, with things like this, we can make more patients aware of what we're doing and why we're doing it, and help more people.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So
Appreciate
grateful.
it.